Hey everybody, this is Professor Lilly, and welcome to Media Law and Regulation ME735. So this is actually the third time, so third time's the charm for me to record this video, introduction to the course. I did it last night, and there was an error, and I just thought it was a fluke, and then the same thing happened today, and I realized that there was not enough room on my laptop, so I cleared a whole bunch of stuff out, and I guess these videos ended up being more than several gigs. So anyway, figure that out. So hopefully this will work. And I don't want to make it too long. I want to give a basic overview of the course and get you into the week one activity. So uh, let's just talk about some basic things first. The best way to communicate with me is definitely through email. I have two children, and one of them, actually, my son, is actually we're trying out real face-to-face school with a small private school that has really small classes, and we'll see how that works. And then my daughter is in public school, and so obviously that's going to be online, and at least for a while. And so sometimes I'm going to be kind of busy with children, but sometimes you will get a response from me like in a minute or two after you send an email, and sometimes it might take a few hours. If for some reason it takes you don't get a reply in 24 hours, then I would just send it again just in case it got buried by other emails. Now you can call me, but I don't pick up the phone for numbers I don't recognize because I get so many spam calls. So you might want to text me first and just say, "Hey, Professor Lilly, can we talk?" And I'll call you back. And then we could also do a Zoom meeting. So this course was designed by Professor King, Elliot King, that most of you have worked with. And his philosophy was that to come up with a key question and to have, as students learn more and more about the subject matter, to have them kind of repeatedly or at least several times this semester come back to kind of answer that key question. And by the end, they're really able to ask it very, very well. So we have it here. What are the key laws and regulations governing mass media, and how do those rules change in response to emerging media? And specifically asking that question from the point of view of if you were advising emerging media professionals. So, and in fact, that will be the question in the final exam, the essay that you will answer. There is, and I'll talk about this probably maybe not in this video, but later on, there is an option instead of doing that essay question to do kind of a more typical graduate level research paper on a topic of your choosing. So that's an option too. If you're interested more in that, if you go to the course policies, and you can look at the final project exam instructions. And this section here, you can refer to look at in terms of grading in general and how a couple of the key assignments, how they work out, or what the guidelines are. So I have done a fairly extensive redesign. I taught this course for the first time in last spring, and I just wanted to run it as it was just to see how it works because it's different than other courses that I have taught before. I designed the user experience, which is a course that some of you might end up taking, or maybe a few of you have already taken. And that focus, or when I taught it, focused more on learning qualitative research methods that you can apply to learning more about how people use an emerging media technology. And so that's a little bit more of a research type class than this one. So I ran it and I got a lot of feedback. So after Professor King taught it, there was an adjunct who taught it, and just a lot of materials were just piling up and piling up. So what I've done is rather than having one tab for each of the modules, so, which means that there was just ton and ton, like so much content in just one tab, and it kind of got confusing sometimes even for me and for other students. I've redesigned it so that every week has its own tab, and even to the point where maybe some of the tabs, like for example week 2 or the wrap up week for each module, kind of looks similar. But I think that's useful, just in terms of familiarity. So and I've also, let's see if I click on, kind of look at module 1 as kind of a sample of how all the modules are designed. So each module will have 3 weeks. You have what I call the intro and reading week, and then you have the presentation and discussion week, and then the wrap-up week. So it's consistent in that sense. And each one of the modules has a specific focus, and we'll talk about that in a second. And so, for example, in Module 1 focuses on just in general how the U.S. government approaches or has approached the regulation of communication infrastructure and how that impacts emerging media industries. And so in each module, the first week will have the most content in it, and that's because that's where all the readings and viewings for that module will be. Now, if you scroll down here, and again, I'm gonna do a very thorough review of Module 1 in a video I'm gonna put out next week. So Module 1 starts on week 2, and so at the beginning of every module, I'll put out a video that's kind of a little bit more like a lecture where I talk about the material in general or the subject matter in general, and then I kind of review what you're going to be focused on specifically. But as you scroll through here, you see there's a whole bunch of readings linked, and we have some viewings as well. And so you're going to be referring to and doing the reading for longer than 1 week. So the module lasts for 3 weeks, and so I fully expect, and you should be, when you're in week 2 of a module, you'll still wouldn't have had time probably to go through or at least read some of the readings in depth and review other ones. So even though all the core subject matter content is in the week 1 tab, you will be referring to a lot of that content throughout the module. One thing I've done is I have cut down the amount of readings probably about in half. And that's because first of all, I kind of thought it was way too much. And then also the feedback I got from students was also that, there was way too much there. And this is the students talking. I just went through and I kind of picked in what I was most interested in and thought was good for preparing me for the discussion. And the key activity that we will all be doing together is a discussion forum for each module. So let me say, not right now, remind me tomorrow. So with that in mind, probably for some of you who've been in this program before, and pretty much any person who's gotten, I would imagine, a credible graduate degree in my experience as a graduate student in my master's and PhD, it's pretty much every course gives you way more reading than you can actually read. Most graduate students are not going to be able to read every single word in every single assignment that they're given. So part of it is management in general, but even with that philosophy, there was just way too much. So with some of these, I've gone ahead and I said review. So this, for example, history of the FCC, it's 36 pages long. So and a lot of it's kind of dry, and some of it might have popped up in other readings. So that's why I'm saying review. And so you might look at it for a while, and then also maybe come back to it when you're preparing responses for the discussion or when you're writing your summary essay at the end of the module. Okay, so week 1 is basically called that for the reading week. Week 2 in every module is called the presentation discussion week. So 2 Right now, last I checked, we had 8 students, and so 2 students will be assigned to be the presentation and discussion leaders for that module. Okay, and what that means is that in week 2, you will be asked to give a presentation on some of the key topics associated with that subject matter. And I will be giving you some specific guidelines on what I want you to focus on. So, in week 2 or week 1, since you're focused on one of the main issues is what is a common carrier in terms of how the government has defined it and how that impacts regulation of that type of media service. And so I've asked the whoever ends up being the 2 presentation leaders or leaders for the whole module, you will do some research on what is a common carrier and how did that come to be decided and what does it mean for emerging media today. And then specifically I've asked you to outline some of the key issues with the issue of net neutrality as well. So rather than opening up the whole thing, which would be impossible and unfair, I've asked that team to focus on those particular issues. So there'll be a presentation. The student presentation can come in 2 forms. You can either do a kind of more traditional type presentation like a PowerPoint, where then you do voice annotation over it. You save it. It will save as a video format, and then you share it with me, and then I would put it here for the other students to view. But there's other options, like you could actually do a video in more like Adobe Premiere type format, a traditional video format, or you could do a Prezi, which allows you to do voice annotation as well. Or you can choose to do it live. So you could do a PowerPoint presentation, and we could schedule a Zoom meeting, and you would work with me to do it at a time definitely when I at least can be there, and the 2 presenters can be there, and then we will advertise it to the rest of the students. So anyone who can be at that presentation is great, and for those who can't, then I will record it, and then they can watch it later. So that's an option. So you could create a PowerPoint or some other like slides or something like that, and then do talk over it live, kind of like you would if we were having presentations in a classroom, face-to-face campus classroom. So those are the 2 options. It's up to the 2 discussion leaders to work together and decide how to do that. So in this week you will be choosing which module you would be the presentation leader for. So that's the first thing that happens in week 2 of a module. And then the second thing is that the module discussion gets started off. And just because it happens mostly in the last week, I've put the discussion board for each module in week 3, the wrap-up week. This is what, right now it's just a blank discussion forum, but this is what a discussion would end up looking like. This is from last semester. So, and we had a lot more students in the course last semester, so each module had around 3 discussion leaders. And so each discussion leader comes up with a prompt to kind of generate some specific conversation. And typically they chose to focus on a specific question. So here, this discussion leader chose to focus on the issue of piracy in streaming services. And so first he talks about Digital Millennium Copyright Act and what that establishment established and tried to do in terms of trying to inhibit piracy, and what places like Netflix, how they have responded, and what the industry in general has tried to do. And then at the very end of his prompt, he asked specifically, how do you think the government can successfully prevent internet privacy? Is it a worthwhile endeavor? And also what the industry is doing. And then we have here all the replies. So if you're not, the majority of students in the class won't be the discussion or the leaders for a particular module. So if you're not a leader, what you do is you're asked to respond at least twice for each discussion thread. So the idea is to kind of to engender a true conversation, and I'll chime in every once in a while in that conversation as well. So this very much kind of mirrors what a lot of graduate level seminars. I probably took maybe between my master's and PhD, maybe 7 or 8 courses that were graduate seminars, which was intentionally a small number of students sitting down and talking over subject matter with the professor. And most of the seminars that I did, the professor would assign a discussion leader or two among the students, and you kind of sit down and you talk about a subject. So this works really well, and I think in almost all of the emerging media courses use this tool. And I found, at least in this class, it works best if we have at least 8 or 9 days to do it. So that's why, and just go back here. So each one of the discussion leaders would start a thread, and so there would be kind of 3 simultaneous discussions going on that try to focus on different specific issues to talk about. And generally, and this is partially because you all have way different schedules, right? And so some of you, might have only 1 or 2 days to really chime in and talk about an issue. It takes a while for a discussion to kind of develop. So that's why I want at least, like I said, 8 or 9 days. So I'm asking the discussion leaders to come in here, even though we would be actively in week 2, they would come in here to the discussion forum and start their thread there so that people can read it and start to reply to the prompts. And then they would wrap up, they're always going to wrap up on a Thursday of the 3rd week of the module. And the reason why I chose Thursday is because we need a few extra days for those who are not discussion leaders to come in and to write their essay. So this is basically a summary of the main issues of the module, and you're answering that main question for this particular topic. What do you think, or what are the main things you would tell or advise professional or media professionals that they need to know? So it's the same type of question for each module, and then in more depth at the end of the semester for the final exam. So you would write and I will give a more specific prompt based on each module. But you would come in here to this, turn it in, and put your 300 to 400 word essay, or rather, I need to have a little bit more information here. It's a little bit longer for the essay, and you drop it in there. And then that wraps up the module. So if you're the discussion leader, or one of the discussion leaders, you kind of did your work with guiding the discussion and obviously doing the presentation, which is a lot of work. So you are exempt if it's your module as a leader, you don't do the essay. So I know that's kind of a lot. Hopefully that's not very confusing. I've tried to make it really smooth in terms of the fact that this whole pattern repeats 4 times. So I think that it will go pretty smoothly because we're focusing on what do you do each week. Okay, so with that in mind, let's talk about what you need to do this first week. So we're going to get a week 1 here. And okay, so a few things to do. First of all, since I was talking about the modules, so everybody needs to sign up to be a module leader. So that there's a little wiki tool I've thrown in here, and you will see the 4 modules. Okay, so module 1 is focusing on government regulation of media technology, and module 2, copyright and intellectual property. Module 3, privacy. Module 4, freedom of speech. There was a 5th module focused specifically on international global issues, and what I've done is I've taken a few of those readings and put them in whichever module that they fit in. So obviously there's lots of freedom of speech issues with censorship all over the globe, and so some of those readings have been put into Module 4, and the same thing with privacy and copyright. So basically what I want you to do is, now that you know what the basic topic area is for each module, and also based on your own personal schedules for the semester. So if you go through and see the tabs all have dates, right? So you can see exactly what weeks that module spans in terms of this fall, and you could just come in here and everyone could edit, and you would just put in your name. So 2 people for each module, please. And each one of those, yeah, is set up like that. 1, 2. So it just says 1, 2. Just put your name so that we know who's doing which one. All right, so that's one thing to do this first week. Everything else is kind of primers to get you into the topic matter, the subject matter. So first of all, we have a link here for watching. Let's see. So it's a little bit easier. I kind of give a basic summary up here, but then I kind of number them to make it specifically, you know, what to do this week. So I want you to watch this student video. It was made a couple years ago by students who were kind of offering. They chose to do their final exam kind of this way. In a video format so that it could be of use for students in the future, and so now you are the students in the future. And the link is right here, but it's basically them talking through the main issues in these particular areas.
As the thought leaders in emerging media look to introduce new communication technology to the market, as well as enhance and make changes to existing communication technology to better serve and grow with new users and an evolving landscape, there are key issues to consider in terms of media law and regulation. As evidenced by the volume of materials we covered and the conversations we had during our course this summer, these issues range from the effects of public policy and regulation, the issues of Americans' right to privacy and free speech, and questions of content ownership and use, as they all pertain to emerging media. In the spirit of emerging media, we have created this final video essay in which we would like to discuss what we have identified as the 5 most important things for thought leaders in emerging media to consider. In the spirit of media law and regulation, all thoughts here are our own, and we have included citations where appropriate.
Okay, so it's about 30 minutes long, and so it's kind of gives you a primer, okay? And the primer is particularly important because I want you to come through in this discussion forum in about, I don't think you probably need to go 500 words, like let's say but around 400 words. Put what you think are the main issues that media professionals should know about, and anything in particular that you also are particularly interested in. And this is kind of just getting your brain working. Granted, at this point, you haven't gone into depth on all these issues, but the idea is for you to start thinking about it, and when you come back to answer this question in the final exam, you'll have a lot more information, and you'll be able to really kind of hone down what your answers are, and you'll be able to come back to this. And the reason why it's here, it makes it really easy for other people to see what everyone's thinking, and then you can come back and see your answer when you're thinking about the final exam. So I'll change that. I'm gonna relax and just say about 400 words. So it's a little bit more than if you were doing a 1-page paper for a class. Okay, and then the last thing is I would like everyone to see each other. So I'm asking everyone to do a Flipgrid video where you kind of talk about what your kind of responses or thoughts are about the student video that we watched, and what you think some of the big issues you're interested in are. You don't have to have done this preliminary final exam answer yet. So I mean, whenever you want to, do watch the student video first and maybe jot down a couple thoughts. But this is meant to be an informal video, and the way that Flipgrid works is you log in through Microsoft, because the Loyola email system is run with Microsoft Office. So you should make sure you're on your computer already logged into your Loyola email. And then when you do that, hit join with Microsoft, and choose work or school account, because your email account is through the school and through Microsoft. And then I already have my email password saved in there. And then it should log in right to here. So see, introduce yourself to class. So you're coming right here. Just click record a response. And I've set it to be a max of 5 minutes. You can just talk for 2.5, 3 minutes. That's fine. So first, introduce yourself. Say maybe why you're in the emerging media program, and what you're kind of interested in this class, and maybe some thoughts or reactions to the student video. If you've already answered your preliminary final exam question, you can throw in some of the thoughts that you had in there. So again, this is supposed to be informal, and about 2.5 to 3 minutes is fine, but you can go as long as 5. I've set it to do that. You can, once you click on this, there's a couple different options. You can certainly do it from your phone. I personally think it's a lot easier with if you're logged in with your laptop. Okay, and that's it for week 1. So start with the student video. Sooner or later, and I've given you a deadline by here it is, Sunday. So, and in general, this course is designed kind of a weekly course, where any kind of deliverable, for the most part, except for the discussions wrapping up, are due. Sorry, that the cat is obsessed with my laptop. By Sundays. So Sundays are generally the day when things wrap up, and the modules always wrap up on that last the third Sunday, and generally at the beginning of the module, like I said, I'll put out a video. It's kind of a lecture about that particular module, and then an overview of what the tasks are as well. Okay, so I hope everybody is excited about the semester. I am. I'm excited to get back to it. And if you have any specific questions, email me. I do have a under. Yeah. No, we had a water cooler that I took out just because no one was using it. So if anyone has a specific question, just email me. And if I think it's something that everyone, like a general question, then I'll make sure in my weekly emails, then I'll kind of let everyone know whatever the answer to that question is. All right, so and then as you know, also just kind of peruse through to kind of get a sense of how the modules work. And most importantly, make sure you sign up to be a module leader. And whoever ends up being the 2 students who end up being the module leaders for module 1, I would go ahead and start conversing over email, and you could even include me in maybe email thread if you want, to make sure you're sure what to kind of focus in on that your presentation. So take care. Email me if you have any questions, and enjoy the first week of class.